Hello there, welcome back to the booth here at Pro Tour 25th anniversary. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe, joined by Simon Gertzen, and we're heading into round number 4. And down in the feature match area, we have what might be bittersweet for the two teams that are facing off. We have the Peach Garden Oath. Everybody knows who that is. On the other side of the table, though, very interesting. They are actually paired up against close friends, especially of William Jensen. This is Linde, Lackey, and McKay. These guys know each other going way back, and now they got to face off in the feature match area here for round number 4. Let's head on down.
Oh, it's Linde Helix! Oh my God!
Oh, easy game!
He didn't block, and that was it!
What have you drawn? What is it? What is it? What is it?
William Jensen is your world champion!
Hello and welcome back to coverage here at Pro Tour 25th anniversary. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Simon Gertzen, and we are geared up for round 4 action, where we have in the feature match area Duke, Jensen, Turtenwald playing up against Linde, Lackey, and McKay. These two teams actually are very familiar with each other as players. Brendan McKay, Matthew Lackey, and Matt Linde qualified via RPTQ. Matt Linde, of that team, the easily most accomplished player, representing 170 of the team's 186 lifetime pro points. That's Reid Duke, of course, sitting across from him in the legacy seat, which is what we're going to start with here. Grixis control for Reid Duke, a little bit of a different look as you get a look at Matt Linde, a former U.S. national champion. He
back in the Tempest Mirage times.
He beat a very famous player from that era. Back in the day, you may have heard of him. Mike Long.
I've heard of him.
Yes, and they had a famous match, actually, where a very young Matt Linde beat him. And it looks like Linde is on a version of Affinity here. So clearly the aggressor in the matchup, Simon, facing down Reid Duke, who is on a self-proclaimed control deck. In this case, it is Grixis.
I think Reid chose a legacy deck that is very close to his heart. We know him play Lilianas and Thoughtseizes in Modern, and Grixis control is, I would say, the same style of deck when it comes to legacy.
Grindy.
Yeah, grindy, value, a lot of control over what's going on, and a lot of 2-for-1s.
This one's a 1-for-1. This is a good old-fashioned lightning bolt. Reid always uses those lightning bolts signed by Chris Rush, and he uses that to take down a Vault Scourge. And now, here's your 2-for-1 that you just mentioned. Hymn to Turok. We're going old school. 2 cards will be discarded at random from Matt Linde's hand, and this is where, of course, Reid could also just get lucky. This is funny. It's 1 through 5, and he's rolled 3 sixes already. He's too good. And what did he lose there? A Walking Ballista and a Wasteland.
Yep.
Ooh, that looks like the last land in hand there for Linde as well.
And that Wasteland could have been an issue for Duke as well.
Oh, no play here from Linde. Does leave up his mana, however. Decides not to attack. He has no colored mana available to him, just colorless, and a Mox Opal that is currently shut down.
Yeah,
Got the switch shut off.
Of course, his deck is almost only artifacts and colorless creatures. The thing that Linde really wants is an aggressive start and then the disruption pieces. Thorn of Amethysts, Lodestone Golems, or just a Chalice of the Void on one.
Now, he did actually have the option of playing a Chalice of the Void that turn for 0, but he chose not to. He's going to play a Caracas and now play the Chalice for 2. So he is closer to getting that Mox Opal online and perhaps unlocking the power of his hand. But unfortunately for him, Reid with removal, hand disruption, and now a Gurmag Angler in successive turns has left Linde somehow behind on board, even though he's supposed to be the aggressor.
I mean, let's look at this. Duke has used his mana for removal on turn 1, for Hymn to Turok on turn 2, and a 5/5 creature on turn 3. And it looks like he's fetching again to spend his mana. If that's something like a Jace the Mind Sculptor, that's basically the perfect draw you can have against this deck.
It is Jace the Mind Sculptor. He also has Kolagon's Command in hand, once again against the Affinity deck. This is not going to go well for Matt Linde. Reid Duke is putting on a show here and, in fact, is going to plus Jace. Take a look at the top card of Lindy's library. And one of the worst feelings in Magic, you may keep that.
Yeah, and also when Jace comes down and the player playing Jace is already so far ahead that they can afford to Fate Seal you and they don't even have to brainstorm, Duke doesn't even attack with his 5/5 because there's no need to. He's winning this game if it continues like this.
Yeah. Wants to keep the factory at bay. Well, Linde does get to now at least start casting his spells. He's going to lead with Arcbound Ravager, and that is enough artifacts to make that Mox Opal online, so he even has an additional mana. But that's all he could do for the turn, and now it just gets ugly. As we've seen, you know, Duke just draws his card for the turn and then just grabs a handful, 3 more cards with the Brainstorm from Jace the Mind Sculptor, and it's just really difficult to imagine Linde coming back from a deficit this big.
No, I expect this to be over really soon with Force of Will backup, maybe even hardcast Force of Will. And soon Duke will find a Snapcaster Mage for, oh no, the Hymn to Target is probably exiled, but more discard spells, more Kolagon's commands. More value, and Linde's cards, even if he had all of them on the battlefield, I don't think Duke would have such a big problem.
Talking about the old school Magic players as well, which Matt Linde absolutely is, you know, having played all the way back to 1997, where he played in the Juniors Pro Tour. He's got stories, man. You go out to a post-tournament dinner with Matt Linde, and you're going to get some really funny stories, and he's also pretty good at telling them, I have to say.
35 Pro Tours played.
Yeah, a lot of experience for Matt. And again, you know, he's got friends in high places. You see in the background there, really one of his best friends in the world, William Jensen. I mean, these guys go way, way back. And, you know, I compared it, you know, your brother plays high-level Magic as well. It'd be like something like getting paired against your brother at the Pro Tour. It's like, well, I mean, you're going to fight, you're going to play, but it's like, you know.
At least they're not playing the same format, right? I just saw Linde has 35 Pro Tour appearances and 37 GP appearances. That's how you can tell that somebody's an old-school player. That ratio of 1-to-1 is unbelievable when you think of modern competitive Magic.
That's true. Where you can go every weekend, every other weekend if you'd like to play in a Grand Prix and you don't mind sitting on an airplane for a while. All right, and now we can see that things have really unraveled here for Linde. That was Kolagon's Command. That's going to take the last card out of his hand and kill the the Chalice of the Void, which then opens the door for Lightning Bolt to resolve.
And we saw some tight sequencing there from Duke. Unsurprisingly, he's a really good technical player. Just communicating very clearly, this Lightning Bolt will target your Ravager before anything else resolves. And Linde's board is anemic.
It's a 1/1. Not a whole lot
There's
going
even a Caracas, an amazing card in some matchups, but not in this one.
That's right. I had a chance to talk to Jensen. By the way, we see Linde scoop up his cards. That's game 1 going to Reid Duke. These guys, you know, $850,000 on the line just for this portion of Pro Tour 25th anniversary. They have been testing for 5 weeks leading up to the tournament, which is significantly longer than you'll find most teams test for a single Pro Tour. It's usually around 2 weeks plus a little bit extra. And what that means is these guys are coming in confident and prepared. They also had a little bit of a different testing cycle than normal as well. So really great stuff from the Peach Garden Oath as far as preparation goes.
If you ask me, they are the professional team of this era. Just
they set the bar.
Yeah, they set the bar. They are the standard, the gold standard.
Yeah, that's the vibe I get as well. And as you mentioned, Reid Duke with that tight sequencing, these are all the tangible benefits that you get from putting in hours and hours and hours of testing.
And the real benefit is that it doesn't cost you mental energy.
That's right.
It's just your
it's muscle memory.
Yeah.
All right, well, we're going to take a short commercial break. When we come back, though, we'll be finishing up round number 4 here from Pro Tour 25th Anniversary.
So Magic the Gathering Arena, we chose that word arena very particularly because an arena is a place where people gather, where people come to compete, where people come to spectate and cheer on their favorites. It really is a place where the whole community can come together.
Match area here in Minneapolis. We're in round number 4, where we have the Peach Garden Oath. I think most people's favorites coming in, right? And I mean that by, if you were going to take one team out of the whole field, who would you pick to win the tournament? They would be, I think, on everybody's short list, and the majority of people who follow this kind of stuff would probably pick them as the number 1.
I think they are on Owen's short list as well. He's not the most humble when it comes to the Peach Garden Oath, and rightfully so. If you're as dominant, as skilled, as well prepared as this team, I think it's absolutely warranted.
Also, I think that the Peach Garden Oath in this scenario really did a great job of recognizing that these type of tournaments don't come around, right? I mean, we're talking about huge prize pool, but also a team event at the Pro Tour level, which that isn't the norm. We just don't have those.
Yeah, in researching prior to this Pro Tour, I realized that the last team constructed Pro Tour was 12 years ago. I was active back then, but
2006.
I assume, 2006 in Charleston, and most viewers don't remember that, I assume, or
I don't.
We didn't have the global Twitch coverage that we have now. It was a really different time.
All right, let's take a look at table Bravo. That's our middle table, which is going to be modern, where we've got William Jensen playing Storm. His opponent is Matthew Lackey, who's on Black-Red Vengevine, a deck that we've been talking about on coverage quite a bit. What do you make of that deck?
It's definitely new and exciting. I think it's too early to tell if that's actually better than Hollow One or Dredge. I honestly don't know. It's a deck that you run into on Magic Online, but only since 7-10 days ago. So
okay.
This is like the new thing. I assume that the pros that are playing it here have been practicing it for maybe 2 weeks, but even that's not a high amount of preparation.
Bridge from Below is the card that Jensen's taking another look at. And there's one of the key cards now for the Storm deck. They have a few different cards that can kind of turbo out their spells. Goblin Electromancer is one of them. Wow. In game number 1, which Matthew Lackey won, he apparently had a Vengevine into a Goblin Bushwhacker on the first few turns of the game. Turn 2, turn 3, and GG.
Yep.
Extremely fast clock if it comes together.
Some planned elementals and some goblins teaming up.
Yeah, unlikely pair, but there they are.
By the way, John Finkel on Storm,
Yep.
William Jensen on Storm. I played Storm a lot when Humans was on the rise, and I didn't feel it was that well positioned because you were running into human decks with a lot of hate. You were running into Eldrazi decks with all these Thought-Knot Seers. And even these faster aggressive decks are, as you can see, putting on a lot of pressure. I'm quite intrigued why Storm at this particular event.
That Humans deck seems like it would be a nightmare.
It is.
It's a quick clock plus disruption, and you don't really interact.
And you don't have the slots to really play around meddling mages and Kitesail freebooters.
Yeah, it seems brutal. Here's Serum Visions now for Jensen as he tries to set up some type of Storm turn. He doesn't need to do it yet. He's at 16. He is, however, facing 7 power on the other side of the board, and that obviously can change quickly. So I think it's probably safe to assume that he can survive next turn, but the turn after that's sketchy.
Yeah, and for those that don't know, the Storm deck will usually spend as many turns as possible setting up, and then a turn before you're afraid of dying, you're going to start going off. Now, this Mana Morphos doesn't mean that Jensen is actually going for the kill right now. Could just be a way of generating some mana, digging deeper into his deck.
He's certainly doing that. Here's Opt. Storm count 3, you can see we're using a die on that face-down card up there.
It is absolutely possible to go off from that spot, but it's not likely. And then what you want to be doing is you want to have one of these creatures like Goblin Electromancer or Baral, Chief of Compliance, in play. And when you have that, you just start cast a few rituals, and you find Gifts Ungiven or Past in Flames, and then you basically recast your whole graveyard and find a grape shot to win.
Seems like right now. Did you see that from Jensen?
I was a bit confused. It looked like Lackey was just
Lackey was going
leaving.
Huey looked over at Owen and gave him the throat motion. Got him. I don't know if that was I'm dead or he's dead, but
somebody's dead.
Yeah. He also might have been asking Owen, did you die?
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Could be anything.
It looks like Brendan McKay and Owen Turtenwald are playing standard, and they're still battling it out. Steel Leaf Stompy versus Owen.
Yep, the two most represented decks in the standard metagame.
Again, this is a turn where Jensen did not need to go off, but rather try to set himself up the best possible way to go off, likely next turn.
Exactly, and it's not such a big cost to put a Mana Morphoso 2 in your graveyard, because you are using that mana very effectively, and you need to find usually Gifts Ungiven to actually get somewhere. The big two modes of playing Storm are either to just slam Goblin Electromancer on turn 2 and to hope that it survives, depending on the matchup, or you have to play a really long game where you drop the Electromancer or Baral the turn you go off. So in this, if you're playing against Black-Red Vengevine, there's not that much removal, and you have to be super fast, so the decision is easy.
Yeah, and if you're going to go for that big turn, you're going to need what?
Yeah,
2 additional lands?
We are talking about turn 5.
Yeah.
Sometimes turn 4, but of course it's a lot more ambitious because you are paying 2 mana. And then there might still be removal spells. So it's actually, these are the more interesting games when you have to play a long game against blue-white control or Jeskai control, for example.
This is going to be Goblin Bushwhacker here. And I think he played the first one just straight up and then the second one with Kicker.
And this is a lot of damage.
Is it enough?
So Bushwhacker is only the second Bushwhacker is pumping the team.
That's right.
6 plus 6 is 12 plus that's
that
18 damage.
That's enough.
So
now he's going to force the chump block on the Vengevine here.
And that's a costly block.
Yeah, see, this is the thing, is that Jensen was really hoping to be able to go into this next turn with some amount of life total and with that Goblin Electromancer to go off.
It doesn't really matter what he blocks here. There's no reason to value block anything because he's dead to this board anyway. I think he'll end up blocking the Vengevine. Maybe he casts some spells while his Electromancer is still alive.
Yeah, he has another Opt he can cast, though. The Electromancer doesn't care about that particularly.
Okay.
Boy, that was a big hit, though, for Matthew Lackey with the double Bushwhacker. Even though one of them wasn't kicked, if he had that land, we would have been done here. And that's going to do it. Matthew Lackey takes down the match against William Huey Jensen 2-0, and his team is going to be very excited to see that, as we know how tough it is to beat a William Huey Jensen. Now, Brendan McKay on the back table, step away from the table for a moment there against Turtenwald, and of course we still have our legacy match of Matt Linde and Reid Duke sitting up front. We're going to take a short commercial break, but when we come back, we'll have the exciting conclusion of this round. We'll see you then.
So Magic the Gathering Arena, we chose that word arena very particularly because an arena is a place where people gather, where people come to compete, where people come to spectate and cheer on their favorites. It really is a place where the whole community can come together and experience the very best of what Magic has to offer.
And welcome back to the feature match area here in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe with Simon Gertzen, and we're bringing you coverage of Pro Tour 25th anniversary. A massive celebration is underway here. $850,000 in total prize pool for the Pro Tour specifically. And it's a team event. Really kind of going all out to celebrate the birthday of Magic. And down in the feature match area right now, we have one of the best teams in the world, if not the best, the Peach Garden Oath, Duke, Jensen, and Turtenwald. They're facing off against a team that you probably haven't heard much from. These are not regular pros on the Pro Tour scene. Matt Linde, Matthew Lackey, and Brendan McKay. But I can tell you that these are close friends of the Peach Garden Oath. They came up in the same area together and used to play way back in the day with William Jensen when Owen Turtenwald and Reid Duke were but children still.
Huey Jensen, of course, has basically 2 pro careers.
He really does.
A lot of people know, of course, the current one, but he was a pro player long before my time even.
Mm-hmm. And just to give you a quick update on where we're at in this match as we come in, Matthew Lackey has defeated William Jensen in their match. Now, what that means is that either Brendan McKay can win one game against Owen Turtenwald with Steel Leaf Stompy against Owen's red-black aggro deck, or Matt Linde can win back-to-back games against Reid Duke in Legacy. And that's where we're going to start here. Matt's on Affinity. He's going to be on the play this time. Has to be a favorite. And look at this right away. Chalice of the Void on 1.
I was just going to say, look at Reid. He's not going to give this one away. And Chalice for 1 is definitely a challenge. I still think that Duke's matchup here is tremendously in his favor.
Oh, no. This one could be slipping away from Reid very quickly.
Now that's true, because suddenly those Color Guns commands are prohibitively expensive.
Yes. Thorn of Amethyst #1 comes down, and you know what? Linde has another one.
What a draw.
Yeah,
on the play.
Now, the thing he's missing, at least currently, is pressure, right?
But that's, I don't think that matters, because non-creature spells cost 1 more. That means Lodestone Golem can come down when Linde finds a single mana source, even if his City of Traders bites the dust. And then Duke is just going to take 5/5/5/5 and has almost nothing to do against it.
Boy. Matt Linde playing the role of the IRS, dropping the tax on Reid Duke. He's not going to be able to cast a spell for a while.
Duke was happy with his hand. You see it there on the right-hand side. Colligan's Command, I think, is amazing in this matchup.
And look at this. He casts a Ponder into the Chalice of the Void, perhaps trying to set something up along the lines of Delve or something like that. When you're forced to get to this point in the game, you are very unhappy. City of Traders is going to tap for 2. Then Lindy's going to pay a second copy of City of Traders, which means he's got to sack the first, but he can tap that second one for 2 more. And as you mentioned, Simon, Lodestone Golem being a creature means he can cast it even underneath the Chalice and the two Thorns as well.
This was a vintage level draw.
Seriously, this looks like vintage. Yeah.
Even without Mishra's Workshop. Linde had the perfect cards against Duke's deck, and Duke, like I said, he was happy with his hand, but it didn't have the force of will, for example, to stop that first thorn.
Yeah, this one is completely out of hand and looking super good for Matt Linde to equalize here against Reid Duke. Is there anything that Reid can do at this point? Let's see if he's got some tricks up his sleeve. He has been filling up his graveyard by casting 1-drops, which cost him 3 and get countered.
Gurmag Angler, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, that's a card that comes to mind.
But even Gurmag Angler is an 8-drop.
It is, yeah. He can't cast it at the moment, but... oh, it's 7. It's 7. Yeah, yeah. He has 4 lands now.
Isn't it being taxed, though? Non-artifact spells?
How many cards did he end up having in his graveyard? Was it only 3?
Just 7, right? It's non-artifact spells.
Yeah,
sorry.
the Lodestone Golem was missed by Duke.
Added GRV here. Have to check. Have you had any warnings for GRVs? No. Up to this point?
So to translate, the judge is saying that it would be a GRV, which is a game rule violation, which is about as simple as it gets. It just means you broke the rules of the game. And so you'll get a warning the first time that you do that at a professional level.
I thought you had 4. Sorry.
Okay, so I'm just going to...
Looks like both of them missed it.
I have not drawn. Right.
So Reid says, go. And that's very good news for Linde because it means he gets another attack step.
No blocks.
Yep.
6 damage down to 8.
Yep.
Down to 8 for Duke.
Ballista.
Walking Ballista looks like it's just for 1 this time.
And that's an artifact and a creature, so it's not taxed by anything.
Crazy.
Okay.
Both of them.
Unusual kind of mistake by Duke.
Cost 4, I'm sorry.
Reid actually underpaid again. It's a 4-mana brainstorm that is getting countered the minute it goes on the stack.
Are we seeing a bit of nerves, maybe?
I don't know. It's possible.
Now I'll deal 4.
I think that he just, he knew it was going to go away anyway, so it's like, whatever. Now he gets to play the Gurmag Angler, but this is the big turn. If Linde can get rid of that thing or just get in for a bunch of damage, the game's effectively over.
I think he might have a lethal attack already.
Just using the Ravager?
If you count the number of artifacts, yeah. You play a Chalice for 0, which effectively costs 2. You just have to be sure that there's no spell that's going to kill you. But you can just leave the Lodestone Golem in play, and then there can't even be a free spell.
So he blocks, but he can sacrifice most of his board. He can end up with the counters on the Ballista at some point, get in for damage, kill him.
Exactly, and this is the nice thing about the Ballista. The Ballista is always lethal in this kind of spot.
That's right. Effectively dealing double damage.
And Linde can play it super safe here. Leaving a Thorn in play means that Duke will not be able to do anything. And even if he would sacrifice the Thorn, he would be winning here.
Sack Ravager, put the counters there, and fire them off. And Reid Duke's going to scoop him up, and that is Matt Linde equalizing against Reid Duke. So Linde can look down the line and say, gentlemen, how are you doing? And you know what? Things are looking pretty good here for Linde, Lackey, and McKay. Because we've got Lackey having already won his match against Turtenwald, Brendan McKay up a game against Owen Turtenwald, and now Linde equalized against Duke. Boy, we could have a major upset here. If we're at the end of round 4 and Peach Garden Oath is 2-2, that is a major disappointment for them, and that is a situation where they've really given up all of their wiggle room for almost the rest of the tournament.
So Turtenwald is down 1 game.
Yeah.
And Reid and Linde, they have equalized 1-1.
That's right.
I would still say that the Peach Garden Oath is over 50% to win this match. That is about the biggest compliment you can give, buddy. That is, yes. Owen Turtenwald knows this red-black deck in and out, and he's super confident with it. I expect him to have a really good sideboard plan, especially against Steel Leaf Stompy, the second best deck of the format.
There's Ronas.
Not a great draw, though, by Turtenwald. You can see here that he's stuck on 2 lands.
He is, but he's still able to cast spells. He's going to cast Cut on Ronus, which you might think, well, why is he doing that? Well, he has a Soulscar Mage out. So that's going to be 4 counters plus 2 damage coming in from the Mage itself.
Yeah, and he's actually planning to follow it up with a Chain Roller as soon as he draws.
But McKay's going to be 1 step ahead of that. He's just going to cast a replacement Ronus and just get rid of that one with the counters on it.
Still no land.
Yeah. Turtenwald can repeat the play he made last turn and just cut again. Ooh, not this time, says Brendan McKay. Blossoming Defense is going to protect his Ronus. Now, it still can't block at the moment.
No, but just keeping something on the table is super, super important here. Now, any kind of follow-up enables Ronus to attack, and you're turning the table. Turtenwald doesn't want to be in a position where he has to be defensive and mana screwed.
Sure. 15.
So Resilient Kenner is going to come down trigger, and that's going to actually give it enough power to make Ronus the Indomitable active. So Ronus is going to crunch in there for 5, and then there's even a follow-up play. That was a huge turn for Brendan McKay. If Owen can't find his way out of this mana situation, they are going to lose this round.
Yep, and that's you can see it
6 cards in hand for Turtenwald.
on the bottom. Look at the dots. They are all on the right-hand side.
Turtenwald's going to consult with Jensen for a minute, but he just has to pass the turn back. This is a disaster for the Peach Garden Oath. 2-2 is where they're headed after round number 4. We're thinking that the cut for the top 4 is going to be X and 3-ish.
Yep, that's my guess.
And we've still got 3 more rounds today and 7 more tomorrow. That is not a lot of space. It's going to be get up and go time unless Turtenwald can find his way out of this mess right now, and it's looking less and less likely every turn that Brendan McKay gets with the shields down from Turtenwald. And look at this. Steel Leaf Champion is going to hit the battlefield and then crew the Heart of Kirin. And this is another massive attack here with only 1 blocker back for Turtenwald.
It is, but I think Turtenwald now has a relatively good block if he wants to expose his Soulscar Mage. Blocking the Resilient Kenra and abrading the Heart of Kirin could put him back into this game if he draws into lands, of course. However, with the activated ability of Ronus, he would be losing his Soulscar Mage in the process.
I think he's pretty willing to give that up at this point, don't you?
Yeah, but it's also his best card against the Ronus. So it's kind of, maybe it's even better not to block, to just abrade, take more damage this turn, hopefully draw a land, and then
Burn spells.
because he's still dealing with Ronus and a Steel Leaf Champion, and if you don't have your Soulscar Mage, I don't see how you can deal with those.
I see. Even if he hits a land.
Exactly, and it's a close call, but I mean, Chain Roller against that board doesn't do anything if you don't have the Soulscar Mage still alive.
And he is going to use Ronus' ability, and that's going to be 9 damage, knocking Turtenwald down to 6. He does keep the Soulscar Mage, as you described. He needs to find a land. Oh, he missed again.
Your turn.
And he just has to pass the turn back, and this one looks like it has fully fallen apart for the Peach Garden Oath against Brendan McKay. He's up a game. His teammate Matthew Lackey has already won his match against William Jensen. And even if McKay were to lose back-to-back games from this spot, they'd still have a shot with Linde against Duke. And it doesn't look like that's going to happen here because this is a huge attack. And Turtenwald extends the hands, says, good games, always a sportsman. But this is McKay, Lackey, and Linde knocking off not only the best team in the room, but their close friends, the Peach Garden Oath. It's bittersweet for them. They're going to be happy to have won the game. But you know how it is? I mean, you're also rooting for your friends.
Yeah, it's a tough loss. 2-2, like you said, below expectations for this kind of team, and we are of course talking about really high expectations here. If you are at 50% after 4 rounds, and you are disappointed like they are, it shows you what you're striving for. You want to be in the top 4. You want
That's
to win
right.
the tournament.
And these guys are absolutely of that mindset. Welcome back to the booth here in Minneapolis. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe. That's Simon Gertzen, the Pro Tour champ himself. He knows of what he speaks. And boy, that is a tough loss to take for Peach Garden out there. We're going to be keeping an eye on them, of course, across the day. But they have really given up any type of leeway that they had, and they're going to have to buckle down, finish today strong, and their tournament is far from over, even if they're able to do that tomorrow.
And all 3 of them have really good mental games. We know, for example, from Reid, he starts 1-4 at a Pro Tour, and then he just wins 10 rounds in a row.
I've seen him
That's
do
the
it.
kind of player he is. And I think all 3 of them, maybe not to the same extent as Reid, but together they have that force for sure.
Absolutely. And, you know, we got a chance to see a little bit of that from Turtenwald as well. You know, how many times have you been to a local game store and seen somebody in a situation that he's in, and they're just huffing and puffing and, oh, another one, great, you know, that kind of thing? You don't see any of that from these guys.
No, and I think actually it makes it easier to cope with the situation. Just wishing your opponent good luck, saying good game, all these kind of things, they matter. They matter for your opponent, for sure. They matter for the community as a whole, but they also matter for your own mental game.
Okay. Guess what? We get to watch a little more Magic. This is kind of cool. So Reid and Matt Linde, they want to play Magic. They came here to battle, and yeah, sure, the round is over. It went to McKay, Linde, and Lackey, but they're going to play it out, and you know what? We're going to show it to you, because why not? So let's head on back down for a little bit more legacy, courtesy of Reid Duke and Matthew Linde. That's awesome. All right, so how are we looking here? It looks like we've kicked things off. Ah, there's a wasteland. Okay, now I figured it out. So there's a Thorn of Amethyst, which apparently came down off of a Lotus Petal. But there's also 2 lands on the battlefield and 1 actual land in the graveyard here for Reid Duke, so that got wastelanded. But it looks like before that he was able to cast a Baleful Strix, and now he's got a Fatal Push, which is going to kill a Phyrexian Revoker. But there's still a Walking Ballista on the battlefield. And what's the land situation here for Linde? Inventor's Fair, and then, ooh, a Mox Opal that is live.
20.
We've got a race here, Simon?
The slowest of races.
Whoa, maybe we do, actually. There is a Gurmag Angler.
21.
That is something that Walking Ballista is not going to be able to deal with easily.
And you can see how different this matchup is when Duke is back on the play.
Full cost.
Announced full cost Vault Scourge here from Linde.
I was surprised, to be honest, to see Linde steal a game, but that drawing game too was just absurdly powerful.
About
Now-
as good as Reid's in game 1.
Yeah, very similar. Just of course the way these decks win the game very different.
Yeah, Reid had pretty much the dream curve in game number 1, and then Linde had an avalanche of hate.
I had it. I had the Soul Read on it.
Plus on Vault Scourge.
I'm proud of myself.
Linde predicted that Liliana.
And that is impressive because there are not too many of those in Duke's deck. It just doesn't help you win the game.
That's the other thing about a player like Linde. I was mentioning that he comes from a different era in Magic, late 90s, early 2000s. One thing that's significantly different from then till now is that how much players talk and interact and even try to deceive each other a little bit at the table through their talking, try to make you think I have something else in my hand. That kind of stuff was very prevalent back then and isn't now. You know, Turtenwald, I think, is kind of the gold standard, honestly, or even just go down the line on Peach Garden Oath, right? They're professional, but, you know, they're not going to come in chatty and, hey, how's your tournament going, buddy? And, wow, that was a good top deck. You know, they're business.
Business, absolutely. And I think how the game has developed, how the game has changed is also a part of that, because a lot more things are happening with open information. It's more about long-term strategy. It's about what's happening on the battlefield. And in the times of Matt Linde,
I'll bounce your boy stuff.
it was much more about hidden information,
Yes.
your cards in hands, your counter magic, and all of that.
Yeah, so you needed to know if they had it, and maybe you would ask them, do you have it? Do you?
That's
You
what
have
I
it?
used to do. Always worked.
You? Come on.
I think the
I view
players-
you as more of a long-term strategy type player rather than a soul read guy. Am I-
People are always
I don't know if
surprised
this is right.
how I was as a
Really?
competitive player. Yeah,
Were
I
you
was quite
really?
a bit different back in the day.
I don't think he's kidding anymore. So Reid Duke does end up finishing that one off. You saw Matt Linde when he played the Jace. He's like, okay, what am I supposed to do? Planeswalker into another Planeswalker. And that will be that for that one. But as I mentioned before, especially for those of you who just joined us on the stream, that was just for fun. That was just two competitors wanting to compete. But this round did not go to Peach Garden Oath. It, in fact, went to Linde, Lackey, and McKay, who are going to improve to 3-1 here after 4 rounds. And it's got to be one of the bigger storylines early. Some of the major teams have had huge stumbles early in the tournament. You know, Team Channel Fireball, Peach Garden Oath, not where they want to be at this point.
We've talked about the reduced variance of teams, but all these teams here have prepared for this event. They know how important it is. Even an RPTQ winner can beat the Peach Garden Oath.
That's right. All right, we're going to take a commercial break. When we come back, though, we'll have more live action here from Minneapolis. Don't go anywhere.
Play Standard each week to win special Standard Showdown prize boosters. Core Set 2019 Standard Showdown events are being held near you. Find a location to play at magic.wizards.com/Standard Showdown.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the News Desk. Rich and Maria here with you as we go back into high gear. 3 rounds down, we're at the back end of round 4, 3 more rounds to come. And then of course the Silver Showcase. So Maria, results starting to come in. What do you got?
So I've got the team, which is a pretty big powerhouse team here of Carvalho, Saporito, and Ramau, currently sitting at 3-1.
Right, so see, it sounds so simple, doesn't it? 3-1. But when they were 2-1, who did they paired with? Peter Sahurek, Joel Larson, Thomas Hendricks. That's who they have to get past to get to 3-1. And that's why when we talk about how hard it is for Peach Garden Oath, they're sitting there at 2-2. If you're at 2-2, that's who you can play next. They could be your round 5 opponent. It is so hard to find match wins. What else?
All right, I've got Enevoldsen, Peterson, and Watsfeld also at 3-1 over Magelheis, Goldfarb, and Bao.
Okay, so that, again, that's a solid squad who lost that match. The interesting thing that I want to highlight, obviously you've got your draft master, Elias Watsfeld, who came straight into Constructed. But the key thing here, Thomas Enevoldsen. Now, Enevoldsen, many moons ago, I think 2013, won a Legacy Grand Prix in Europe. But the thing about Enevoldsen, he is maybe the best Legacy player in the room, sort of vying with Jonathan Angelescu for that prize. 76% win rate at GP and PT level at Legacy for Thomas Enevoldsen, a superb player. And what that translates into, Maria, is something like 10-4, 11-3 is his kind of benchmark for 14 rounds of playing Legacy. So if in seat 1, you're playing with an 11-3.
You feel great.
We feel great, right? Sitting in seats B and C. Well, you'd be in the B seat. You'd be in the modern seat. I'd be playing standard with chain whirlers, I suppose.
Chain whirlers, Rich.
Or
How
something.
could you?
I don't know. Well, apparently that's a good deck. You know, you're sitting there thinking, well, if I've got a 10-4 and 11-3 on my team as the baseline, he does well. He's 13-1. So at that point, you've got to feel great being in the Watsfeld seat there, for example. So Enevoldsen doing very nicely, thank you. But how about this for a real surprise? Who would you say would be the first team to get to 4-0? You probably wouldn't have had Ryan Cubitt, Gold Pro, Carl Sarup, Silver Pro, Jose Neris. 10 Pro Tour starts between the 3 of them.
Wow.
Kind of a scratch team, but here they are, 4-0. And as we speak, with results still coming in, 10, 15 minutes to go in the round, not a single other team is perfect. Everyone else is still playing, trying to get to 4-0. So right now, Cubitt, Sarup, and Neris lead Pro Tour 25th anniversary. Great stuff.
And you know what's really cool too, Rich, as you mentioned this team, which, you know, not a lot of people might have had on their radar. Out there, a lot of teams are playing together for the very first time.
Right. Now, why is that? You should explain that. Because
So, yeah, right. We had a GP here in Minneapolis, my hometown, a lovely place, last weekend, and some people qualified for this Pro Tour at that tournament and had to scramble to find a team.
Yeah, outstanding stuff. And of course, gold and silver pros finding teams together. So lots of trios that are together and playing it in heat for the first time. So down on the floor, Brian David Marshall is with one of our players. And it's not quite Reid Duke, it's Corey Burkhart.
Thanks, Rich. I'm here with Corey Burkhart. Literally just finished his match on the floor. Give us a live update as to how things are going down there for your team.
Team face-to-face is doing great. I know Dave Williams, Gabe Nassif, and Eric Froelich, they were 3-0 going into this round. Like you said, I just got out of the area playing, so I don't know if they won or lost, but Rich, Ben Rubin, and myself are now up to 3-1.
And now a big part of success is how you distribute your wins and losses. How are you doing personally?
I am 3-1. The match that I lost, our team lost. Ben's been hard carrying us. Ben has just been absolutely clobbering everybody, playing just amazing Magic, and I'm really proud of him.
That's awesome. Now, I'm going to assume you are playing the modern leg of this event for your team.
I don't know what gave it away. Yeah, I'm playing modern.
And how has the modern format looked to you as you've, through the little porthole of what you've seen through 4 rounds?
Yeah, so I've played against 2 blue-white control decks, Marty Pyromancer deck, and a white-black Eldrazi and Taxes deck. I mean, overall, the format's still a blast. I still love it and can't wait to go sit down at the table and play again the next round.
Now, what was the approach the team had towards the Legacy format? How did you decide who would be playing with all these oldest cards and this kind of most unknown format at the Pro Tour level?
Yeah, so it was pretty much determined when I teamed up with Ben Rubin and Rich Hohen. It was like, well, you're playing Modern. I'm like, all right, obviously, I'm playing Modern. So it was determining between, is BR going to play it? Is Richie going to play it? I think pretty much the whole time we just told Rich, hey, you cool with playing Legacy? And he, you know, he's a trooper. He'll play anything, anytime, anywhere. So he picked up Legacy pretty early on and audibled back and forth between decks, and we eventually ended up on a deck that we like. And, you know, he won that round for us, and that won us the round. So stoked for that one.
Yeah, Rich Owen, really a player mostly known for playing 40-card decks.
Of course, yeah. So Richie is sort of one of the old school limited masters, and when we found out, you know, this was team constructed, we're just like, you know, shoot, we kind of lost some equity there on our Richie pickup, but
narrator voice, he didn't say shoot.
But no, Richie's great. Like, you give Richie any Magic card, and I'm going to be very confident. Like, he's one of my favorite players to test with of all time. And, you know, anytime he says, hey, I want to go to a Pro Tour, if I can pick him up on my squad, I'm going to be very, very pleased.
So what's on the line for you guys this weekend? What are you looking to accomplish?
So team series-wise, we basically need a miracle. Like, thankfully, you know, Gabe Fro and David Williams, they're doing their side of it. We're trying to pick up the slack here. We lost our first round. We're battling back. We're up to 3-1 now. Overall, I think team-wise, Ben can get to gold. Richie can theoretically, I think he might be silver already. But if we go 9-5, I'll hit platinum. And I think if we go 10-4, I'll make it to Worlds. And, you know, that's sort of been one of my goals for a few years now. I've missed platinum 2 years in a row, somewhat on narrow margins. And it's one of those things that you look back after you get home from a tournament and you're like, oh, why did I make this mistake in that match? And I don't want to be, you know, going home on Sunday night and thinking, you know, I lost a match I shouldn't have. I could have played better. But, you know, at the end of the day, if we end up 8-6, we end up 8-6. So I'm just going to try to play the best I can, and we'll see how we end up.
All right, Corey. Well, I'm sure we'll all be pulling for you. Good luck the rest of the way to you and to the entire team.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, BDM. Well, we can tell Corey how the rest of his team is doing. Froelich, Nassif, and Williams currently undefeated, sitting at 4-0.
Yeah, and that's starting to get a pretty exclusive club. Remember, because we have 160 or so teams, functionally 80 matches per round, roughly. That means by the time we get to 4-0, we're down to double figures, 10 teams
already.
Only, with a perfect record. So then it'll go 5, 2, and likely in the last round, the last 2 undefeated teams will play to see who gets to 7-0. Intriguingly, quite a few draws starting to pepper the leaderboard here. Quite a few teams are like 3-0-1. And so on, and that's a surprise. I thought that most matches would get done, but even with an hour to play, we are seeing some draws. I want to take you to Europe. I'm going to go as wide in Europe as I can possibly go in one result.
All right.
Valentin Mackel, Austria, is kind of there. Patrick Dickman, Germany, is kind of there. Steve Hatto of Luxembourg, which is kind of there. Then Michael Bonder of Denmark, I'm confident about this one, is there. Makis Matsoukas of Greece, which is there, and then Gregor Kowalski of Poland, which is sort of there a bit. Anyway, so that's 6 European nations at one table at one match of Magic, which awesome. Is as big as we can possibly manage. Mackel, Dickman and Hatto win that one over Bonder, Matsoukas and Kowalski. So if you're from Austria, Germany, Luxembourg, Denmark, Greece or Poland, there we go. We've talked about you all weekend long. Deck Tech time. Where are we going, Maria?
All right, we're going to Legacy. Paul Chion is standing by with Pascal Maynard to tell us about Reanimator.